Welcome to the SpoonFull Show. I'm Rachel, and this is a space for real conversations about chronic illness, hope, and learning to keep going even on the hardest days. Because strength doesn't always look loud, sometimes it's simply taking life one spoon at a time. Welcome back to a brand new season of the SpoonFull Show. I'm your host, Rachel. And this season is going to be extra special because the SpoonFull Show is now available in video formats. So whether you're listening or you're watching, I'm so happy that you're here with me. Today's episode is one that I think a lot of people with chronic illness are going to connect with. You might know Michelle Young from her days on The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, social media, or her life in the public eye. But today, Michelle is sharing the parts that people don't always see. From severe fatigue and panic attacks to mold exposure, dysautonomia, and POTS, she opens up about what it's really like navigating illness during some of the biggest moments of her life. We'll talk about grief, relationships, mental health, and redefining what strength looks like when your body forces you to slow down. So whether you're struggling to get answers, grieving the life that you thought you would have, or just trying to make it through another hard day, I hope this episode reminds you that you're not alone. Let's get started. Michelle, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the SpoonFull Show today.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here and nice to meet you.
We're going to start here kind of at the beginning of your chronic illness. So you recently said that your chronic illness journey began after severe mold and mycotoxin exposure, which ultimately led to your diagnosis of dysautonomia and POTS. So can you take us back to the beginning when you realized something was wrong?
Yeah, and honestly, it's hard to think back of when my symptoms really first started. I'm sure with a lot of people who just have chronic illness in general, they understand or can relate to going to the doctor when you're not feeling well and starting to look for answers and thinking you figured out what's going on, and then you don't have what's going on. It's something completely different, and the story keeps on evolving. And so there was at one point where we noticed, I really started to feel low energy. I'm a very high energy person, very bubbly person, would always bounce from one thing to the next, very active, played like Division I basketball, and never really stopped those workouts. After I stepped away from teaching, I went through like an intense teacher burnout. And I used to think that burnout was you're really tired, you might need a few days to crash, and then you can bounce back and continue on. But this burnout was like a year, where during that point, I really realized that I had to be intentional in order to get myself out of that burnout because my nervous system was just so exhausted from everything that I went through. During that time, we now know or believe that I was exposed to mold in one of the houses that I was living in. And I eventually got out of that house, didn't know it while I was there. But I had certain symptoms, just like that fatigue never left. It still proceeded. It started to get really heavy. My breathing started to get really bad, and little things that I used to just bounce up and do weren't so easy anymore. And at this time, I mean, former college athlete, I always had the mentality of push through, push through, push through. You're just fatigued, you're tired, you're still dealing with the burnout. And so few years later down the road is where I met my now husband, Jack. When I had met Jack, it really settled a lot of things down. Whatever, just it was meant to be. Being in his presence, I was able to finally calm down. And that's when everything really ramped up. And not to blame him, it is not my husband's fault. I love that man. Your nervous system should feel safe. But because what I had already gone through, it just all caught up.
What were some of the symptoms that you were experiencing at that time?
I was just got to the point where I was so exhausted I wasn't able to do much. I really was getting sick left and right. My immune system was pretty shot. And I'd have tension headaches. I always had tight shoulders, but that pain, now coat hanger pain, that just really never left my body. I knew that I held stress in my shoulders. But as I kept kind of moving forward with it, we started to really talk and be like, okay, I think I need to go get some blood tests done. Just this fatigue isn't leaving. I've had mono before. It is that heavy feeling like you have
Yeah.
weight on your shoulders. Started to really struggle with getting out of bed, which that affected my mental health. That created a lot of anxiety. And that's kind of where like the panic attacks started to stem from. And then I had that fear of, okay, well, what if this panic attack happens while I'm out in public? And
Mhm.
when I'm out in public now, it's a lot different than when I was out in public years ago before the show. And so I ended up going to the doctor and was struggling with anxiety, went on an anxiety medication. Things got a little bit better, but just got to a point where I'm like, this fatigue is not normal. Like, I know I just turned 30, but this is not normal. And I just
Yeah.
didn't feel myself, I think was, you have that feeling in your gut that something's
Yeah.
off or I don't have all the answers. And so, um, started to get tests, that whole thing, everything came back normal. Iron, normal, ferritin, normal, um, cortisol, little high, but nothing to worry about. And I was going through a stressful time with work, so that seemed to be normal. And at this point, I was at a traditional doctor, and everything was normal, 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 normal. And
Right.
that's kind of where I really started to think, okay, I need to advocate for myself when I go in because all these doctors are saying, like, you're fine, everything looks fine. And I've been trying to do all these different things, and I'm like, something is not right. And continued to get blood tests, continued to do heart monitors, tests, scans, everything. At this point, I was with a functional doctor. So we were starting to look at some things, and that's when we found the mold exposure and like the mycotoxins, and those levels were crazy high. So at that point, we were thinking, hey, like we found it. We know what's going on. This is exactly why I feel sick. So we moved into that whole detox protocol. You get worse before you get better, and I really did start to feel pretty dang awful. Um, and then I ended up posting about it. This person reached out and connected me with a doctor and a specialist. They brought me in and we did a bunch of insight scans. We kind of put two and two together of where I might have possibly been exposed to this. Um, but the way the human body is set up, it's supposed to naturally detox you. And if you're no longer being exposed to mold, why is your body not detoxing and itself? And so that started to kind of put things in perspective of I can do this detox and I can get all of my, mycotoxin levels down and all of those things. But if I'm exposed to mold again, how am I not going to have this happen again? Or how do I know that my body's going to take care of it or when I should detox again? And so I didn't want to just have to keep doing detoxes and detoxes. I wanted to get to the root of how this happened and fix the system so that I can have a system and then support that as needed. A system that's functioning correctly and then support that as needed.
I love that you're trying to get to the root of the issue and not just treating the symptoms. Tell me about these scans and how they work.
They're able to check so many different things on such a deep level. They can see how your nervous system is talking to each other, and if things are aligned, certain areas along your spine that has to do with the autonomic part of your nervous system, with how things are signaling to each other. Are they signaling correctly? Are they sending the right signals? What's out of line? Are your both of your sides balanced? Certain areas that have trauma along your spine and the area that has trauma or showing different things is a lot of times like relates to your symptoms or relates to things that you're experiencing or conditions. And I think the coolest thing or that really stuck at that time, well, I guess it's not cool, but made sense with me, resonated with me is that I was seeing how much energy my body was putting out. And my energy was my number that I started with was like in the 300s. And to give you an idea, if you take an average person who's healthy and they do these scans and it can detect how much energy your body is able to put out, it's 6,000 is the average. And I was at like mid 300s, and 0 is like you're not you're
Right.
not alive. So that was looking at that, I was like, no wonder I feel so awful. I ended up going into this program where I was getting adjusted 5 times a week. We started off super, super heavy. Every 12 adjustments, I would do insight scans again, and you would are able to see. I don't know, I'm talking in past tense
Right.
because I'm still continuing
Right.
to do this. It's been pretty amazing to see just by November how much my body has changed. And by no means am I outside sprinting around, running marathons or anything like that. But you can kind of see and feel like your body
Yeah.
healing. And my energy is starting to go up. It really does still fluctuate. I do still get flares. I do have a lot of my pot symptoms right now, but they are starting to significantly reduce and hopefully will start to disappear because where mine is coming from is just complete dysregulation and having
Right.
dysautonomia. And so it's been like a very eye-opening experience of just learning about my body and having life change so much for me and not being able to push through, or just pushing through looks a
Yeah.
lot different. It is awesome to see just these different pathways that are being built, and we're kind of just retraining my brain, retraining my body so that it's sending the correct signals and being able to put steps in the right direction to basically build more resilience
That's good.
and retrain a lot of things and hopefully get to a point where I'm not dealing with these symptoms and I'm able to live somewhat of like a normal life.
You talked a little bit about the symptoms, but what exactly is POTS?
You know, your heart and your blood flow are not working correctly, essentially. And with that comes this whole range of symptoms. So for me personally, I experienced, panic attacks. I experienced um nighttime, like night sweats at points, dizziness, fatigue, crazy fatigue, um, just the anxiety. I think at the beginning was just what was so hard that I was kind of shocked that it wasn't necessarily like an anxiety disorder. It was actually stemming from the POTS. I think that's something that's not looked at a lot, but I really struggle with hydration, things like standing up and your blood pressure drops and your blood's not able to pump, your heart's not able to pump that blood through your body as a normal average person would. So that's, your lightheadedness that's coming in here. A lot of people faint. I will say I'm very lucky that I have not dealt with the fainting. Um, and so that has not been something that's been for me, but I will, my eyesight does like go black. I know to squat down and my body can kind of then reboot a little bit so that I don't pass out, which I'm very grateful for. But there's just a range of symptoms, and it's a part, POTS is basically a part of dysautonomia. Dysautonomia is an umbrella term. So it's dysregulation of the autonomic nervous system. So autonomic meaning automatic, things that your body automatically does, things that you can't control. So, like your heart beating, speeding up and slowing down, those features that you don't have necessarily control of. And so, when that's dysregulated, a lot of these symptoms are coming from that. I think I've had to do a lot of research myself. And then this new specialist that I'm with, they've been able to teach me a lot.
You were dealing with so much during these major life events. How did you navigate wedding planning while also feeling so awful?
There was that adrenaline of like being really excited about that. So there's times where like I had boosts of energy. Um, but during that time I started to really get back into the like not being able to get out of bed. And my biggest enemy was truly like the fatigue. We thought about pushing it back, but I'm very competitive. I'm motivated person, so I'm like, I'm gonna get healthy. I'm not pushing this back. And I think it's hard when in those situations and you talk to other people like what's going on, and I think we all wrote it off to wedding stress. So made it through my wedding barely. Was out of commission for about 2 weeks, where it was so hard to eat. I had to get several IVs to even get me out of bed after the wedding. I had that wedding crash, which a lot of people have, but I had it on a much different level. And I was like, everyone really feels like this? Like, I know you get tired, but is this normal? And so we made sure we did our honeymoon months down the road because we just knew that I probably would take a hit after the wedding. And we started to, pack, get ready for the honeymoon that was in August, this past August. And I was better, but there were still stressful things happening in my life. So again, contributed to that. And we did make the decision to still go on our honeymoon. And we ended up coming back from that 7 days early because I got to the point where I couldn't do it. And Jack and I just both looked at each other at one point and he was like, we need to go home. And I don't think I would have said, I think I would have tried to push through because I didn't want to, you know, impact him and affect his trip and his experiences. And while we were in the Amalfi Coast and at the hotel, I just must have looked sicker than I thought, or he just knows me very well. And he's just was like, we can't go for it. We have to go home. So we rerouted. I came home. I got like 2 IVs the moment I got home, or 2 full bags of liquid. And my face was like greenish yellow.
How would I describe my current state? Functioning ish. And that's being pretty generous. Functioning ish t shirt available in my shop. Go to spoonfulofstrength.etsy.com or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the show. You talked about your honeymoon and the exhaustion
Yeah.
for the moments like your proposal and
Yep.
your wedding. What was it like emotionally to try and hold joy and illness at the same time for these monumental moments in your life?
The proposal, I didn't know it was happening, and so I almost didn't make it to my proposal because I was going to this, photo shoot that was set up, and I remember waking up that morning and I was so exhausted, felt so sick, and I was just in agony the whole time. I was getting my hair done and my makeup done and my nails done, and that whole time I was sitting down, but it was like the stress of what I was feeling, all those different things, and I was so fatigued. I remember sitting, getting my nails done and thinking, "How am I supposed to stand in front of a camera right now? How am I gonna do that for 4 hours?" Um, I remember calling my husband and, like, crying on the phone to him, trying not to ruin my makeup, just like, "I don't know how I'm gonna get through this," and he, of course, is, like, freaking out and thinking that, "What if she, doesn't show up, or what are we gonna do?" And my manager was in on it as well, so she was just kinda trying to talk me down and calm me down, and I just felt so awful. Um, so I think at that time, I was very relieved when it was a proposal and I didn't have to go to like a 4-hour photo shoot because I felt awful. But I was so happy and I was so excited. And I remember going to the engagement party afterwards. And normally I would have probably like gone out for like another drink with my friends and family and with my fiance, but I just had to go straight home. And that had kind of been like the routine for a little bit because that fatigue was there. Same thing with the wedding day. I think I was really just in survival mode. So I just pushed through. I kind of put my head down and I did what I had to do and got through it. And I think the grief of it came afterwards. Of once I got the diagnosis, it was more so that's where the emotions were of like, I didn't get to enjoy this to the full extent. And I think that's where it comes in, and that's where it's been difficult because when you just got nothing left, you're trying to survive and, you don't wanna feel like you're surviving through your wedding, you wanna be able to enjoy it, and it was still and is still one of the best days of my life, and same with the proposal, and I was able to just have those wonderful moments and really be present, during certain moments of the day, but it was a lot. It was a lot for me, and I think I go back and forth. I think for a little bit, it was hard for me to look at pictures just because I could tell or I could see it in my eyes of, like, I really could tell I was exhausted
Yeah.
there. But also you could tell how happy I am, like the genuine happiness. And it was a wonderful day. That's what we wanted it to be. It went as like smoothly as possible. We knew the universe knew that
Yeah.
we could not handle any like
That's
bumps
awesome.
or anything. Um, Poured right before the ceremony and stopped the moment the sun came out right when we were getting married. It was amazing. So I think the grief of it all really came afterwards. Um, and still now at times is I think having that, situation with the honeymoon and having to leave that early, it's these two big events in your life that you hope only happen once or you experience, and we're gonna have to redo a
Yeah.
honeymoon. We talked about that. We're like, we're gonna redo that when I'm healthy and I'm able to walk all over Europe.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm mentally holding on to and kind of training for is okay, I'm gonna get healthy so that we can do this again. We're gonna go back to Italy. We're gonna redo Italy. We're gonna do it when I'm healthy, when I can enjoy it, and try not to hold like too much guilt from having to
Yeah.
come home.
You've mentioned grief a couple times, and a lot of us with chronic illness, that's familiar territory for us. The almost grieving the life that you had, the healthy life that you had, and looking forward to unknowns of where am I gonna be in 5, 10 years. Do you have grief of looking at your life and seeing how much it's changed?
Yeah, I still probably really struggle with that. I don't know if I guess time will tell. I don't know if it's something that ever goes away. I think it probably depends on where your chronic illness is at. And I think for me, it's been really hard to just think about these were like the pivotal times of like our relationship. The honeymoon
Mhm.
phase and when you first fall in love, that I felt like was over for me so quick because my body got so sick and we were dealing with the panic attacks and all these things going on. I really felt like you can't go out on all these dates and things that we loved doing and our social life had to take a hit. So I think that in those moments, again, I was in survival mode, and when you feel awful, like, you don't want to be out, but the moments where I'm not in survival mode is almost where that grief comes in because I'm able to think about it. I think I've started processing it, but I also try not to stay in it too long because of where it puts me mentally and the stress of not knowing what the future is gonna look like, and I'm 32, about to turn 33. I thought I would have had kids by now, but now I'm dealing with this and really have to get my body healthy to a certain very stable state if kids would play a role in the future. And so those are things that really can drive a person, but on the hard days, those are things that can really weigh heavy on a person. And so I'd say it flows depending on the day, but my husband, Jack, he's been so wonderful just having those conversations with me so I don't have to hold it inside because I did for a little bit. And again, it's like that's not what I wanna do if I'm wanting and so that I can truly genuinely heal. And there's a lot of isolation that comes that I think people who don't experience this, uh, don't understand and can maybe empathize, but you really just don't know how heavy that feeling can be until you're in that situation.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, it can be a very lonely place, and there's a lot of days where I know for me, sometimes the mental part of it is is hurting more than the physical parts of it.
Yes.
And so how do you take care of your mental health while also focusing on your physical health as well?
I think I'm still working on that part of really figuring out or maybe catching myself earlier of not letting that and sitting in that. It's hard because if I was struggling mentally before, what would I do? I'd get up and go do something. And whether it's go hang out with a friend or go grab a bite to eat or go, shopping, just get out of the house. And it's such a deal, or, you're having all these symptoms when you're in that place mentally. You don't necessarily have the energy to get up and go do something. So for me, a lot of times it's putting my phone down, and not getting stuck in that scrolling pattern of just seeing everything that's going on and understanding like that's okay if I put it down and trying to build some type of routine for me at home with whatever that looks like. So reading, really taking part of that. I genuinely enjoy creating and editing, and it's really nice that like my creativity with things has been coming back. And so I think that's what I try to jump into and really focus on because that's hard. Those days are hard, and I've also spent a lot of time sitting and my thoughts spiraled until where I couldn't even control them, and it was just awful. And I also tell myself like I refuse to do that to myself again. Like I refuse to allow my brain to spiral like that. Have a little more control over it. I have to have that positive self-talk and be kinder to myself, and I have to give myself permission to relax. It's okay that I'm laying down and I watched another movie. It's okay if I have to slow down to this degree or cancel those plans or reschedule or whatever it is. I've really had to work on giving myself permission to not feel that guilt for not doing something. And I'm really learning that slowing down does not mean that your life doesn't have you, and really learning how to love the small things again.
Yeah. I think a lot of chronic illness is redefining what things mean after going through chronic illness. And you've been one that have always shown strength, whether it was on the court or in your classroom or even on TV. How do you think that chronic illness has reshaped what strength means for you?
I used to think strength was pushing through, and now I genuinely think strength is taking care of your body. Um, and being honest with where you're at. It's so hard with invisible illness because I always would just put on a face. And I think for a while I was really posting the happy moments. There's so much negativity on the internet. I didn't know what was going on with me. And I think once I did that and was just vulnerable about where I'm at, the grief that I'm feeling really did kind of open up a community. Um, and being vulnerable with that, I think that has strength in it. So it's definitely the opposite of what I used to think, right? You used to like, fall down, rub dirt on it, get back up regardless how much bad something hurts and keep pushing through. And it's like there's strength in asking for help, there's strength in slowing down, there's strength in resting and saying no and respecting your boundaries. And I think that right there, again, like I had to have this happen for me to understand that. But it really has opened my world up to understand that because I was always trying to achieve the next thing, and that's where my happiness was coming from, and that's not sustainable whatsoever.
I want to take just a moment to talk about family and your husband Jack. Chronic illness is definitely a family disease in the way that it impacts everybody who loves you. And you've spoken about Jack's support, and
Mhm.
especially as a newlywed, your first year of marriage probably didn't look like what you thought it would look like. What does it tell you about your partnership with Jack? He sounds just like a great support
Mhm.
system.
It really has shown, once again, my nervous system that he's got me and he's there. Chronic illness, you really do only keep the people around you that have healthy energy, that understand what you're going through, um, and that are there for you and stick. Life looks different, and they have to understand the canceling and the rescheduling, not take that personal, the delayed responses with texting. When it comes to family, it's same thing. And I mean, even Jack has had to give up a lot at times where his friends were going on a trip and he decided to stay home, to help me, to take care of me. And so, um, he's just really taken ownership of those things and really trying to understand what's going on, and not saying it's been all perfect, like roses.
Right.
I don't want to say roses, but flowers and everything. um, it challenges you, like, because it's a lot and you have to find a balance where both parties have to accept this new type of life. And he grieves as well. He grieves the life that he thought he was going to have. And I could choke up and cry about this. We're not going to go there today. But, like you feel bad and you give them an out, and he's obviously, he doesn't take it. We talked about that, but you feel bad. So sorry. Clearly it's still there. But yeah, so he's been amazing. And he's just been, I don't know. I firmly believe you have, with chronic illness and you have a spouse who's next to you or partner, they are either going to help you or they're going to make it worse. And so, your environment at home has to be very healthy to heal or to prevent flare ups. And there's a lot of things that have to happen, and life just changes. And he doesn't blame me for it. And he's full of energy, love, is singing around the house as he always does, is embracing the small things, celebrating that I got up and was able to do the dishes and not be out of breath, like, things like that. It's just we both kinda had to go back to, like, the bare bones of it, and he's really stepped back with that with me, and, I would 100% do the same thing for him, so it's I've been really
Yeah.
grateful. Don't have the fear that of abandonment or that he's gonna leave. I think that's something with what I went through before, of somebody switching up like that. I don't know if it's a weird thing of you go through things to kind of also, like, heal you, and he's been very healing for me, so.
That's so wonderful. I I'm with you. I've had that conversation and I've had the conversation of you didn't sign up for this. Like you didn't
Mhm.
ask for this. And his response has always been, well, you didn't sign up for it either. So,
Right.
it sounds like Jack's a good one and a good one to hang on to.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that you have that support. That means,
Yeah.
a lot
Yeah.
to have
We
that.
picked a good one.
Yep, yep, definitely. So looking back over the last 2.5, 3 years, how has this all changed you?
Ooh, I think it's just changed my perspective on life. The things that I felt like were important aren't so important anymore. I think I've learned just a lot of different lessons and, like I said, what I value and the people around me, um, how precious a healthy body is. And it's also really given me perspective. I think I've had such a weird feeling as I've been going through this of like, I'm meant to go through this. I don't know why. That really stinks when, you really feel awful. But I do a lot with like motivational speaking and have been able to connect with teachers about like teacher burnout and going through that, and anxiety with other women and things like that. But like this right here has really just been the biggest one of learning about who I am. Uh, always had empathy, but just a even deeper level of empathy for people who are going through more than I'm going through. Um, and so it's just given me a lot of perspective of even what you see like on social media and how I view the world. And just looking at people and not really truly understanding what they're going through, that just never leaves my mind now. Not that it necessarily did before, but I just always felt like I had a strong understanding of people beforehand. I love being around people, like I've said, but now I just have an even deeper understanding of that. And will hopefully be able to use it to empower and impact and do something good with it.
You made the decision to announce your chronic illness and that you had POTS and start to share some of that information. Was that a hard decision? And what have you received back from that?
Yeah, I started to do it when I kind of talked about my symptoms. I think whenever I posted that maybe back in October, November, October, December, sometime around there, posted a little bit about what I was experiencing. With sharing, I felt like I was living a lie, and I wasn't being dishonest about what was going on because the things that I was posting on social media were things that I was actually doing, but
Right.
everything was happy and positive and like nothing's wrong. And I feel like I just wasn't able to really get out of the healing piece of it. And
Yeah.
I felt like I wasn't going to be able to truly heal and do what I needed to do for my body if I just continued to post like everything was great, and it wasn't. And so I was always nervous about saying it. I felt like it was a message that needed to be shared because I'm like, there's got to be more than one person that's dealing with this. And it just has had this experience of going to the doctor and the frustration of not being able to figure out what's going on. And mine lasted, a few years, but some people do this for years and there's misdiagnoses and all of this. And so I definitely was nervous about how people are going to respond to it, especially because with invisible illness, like it's pretty good at being invisible because we're great at masking it and looking fine and showing up and faking the energy. But um, I just didn't want to not be believed, I guess, I think was my biggest fear. But there was like a massive outpouring of support. And so I posted, I put my phone down, me and Jack turned on a movie, and then I picked my phone back up and just the amount of messages, and they were, like, pages and pages long of messages that were like that, just saying, "Thank you for sharing. I feel so seen. I've felt so isolated. I've been dealing with this, and I really needed to see this today." It's scary to see how many people are dealing with a similar story or feeling or experience, um, but that isolating feeling, like, lifted a little bit. That helped with the grief and the isolating feeling because I just didn't feel so alone in that. And it was really nice to talk to people who were just there and understood without even like saying anything, or they just get it. And so that was really encouraging. And to just be able to tell my story as it is, as it's happening, and not have to pretend that everything is great, we got married, everyone wants to hear about the honeymoon, everyone wants, the babies to come right away and all this stuff, and, like, I would love for that to happen in that order exactly like that, but that's just not what's going on here, and so, to just put that out there was a huge relief, and I'm happy that it's been received with support.
Yeah.
It's been nerve-wracking. It's still nerve-wracking as I
Yeah.
post, you know?
Yeah. I will say I think there's something special about the chronic illness community. There's just no judgment. It's just outpouring of love. And even people who don't have POTS may have a different illness. It's
Mhm.
like the chronic illness umbrella that we all deal with, the fatigue and all of these similar symptoms and the struggles of getting diagnosed and all of that. The chronic illness community, social media has been wonderful to me And I really feel like there's something really special
Yeah.
there. So as we kind of close out here, what is your message to listeners who may be struggling, maybe not specifically with POTS, but struggling with either getting the diagnosis or dealing with the diagnosis? And what do you want them to hear right now?
I think the biggest thing that I really needed through all of this is for someone to tell me that it's okay to rest and it's okay to slow down. And how productive you are does not determine your value, your worth, how much you get done in a day. It it's nothing to feel guilty about. Like, you existing is enough. And hearing that on really hard days or at the beginning of this, I think would have saved a lot of pain, because as your life changes, of course, you want to be out doing all these things that you love doing. And there's some hurt and pain that comes with not being able to do those things. But I felt like I wasn't worthy. I felt like I was lazy. I felt like all of these other really harsh emotions, and that led to like such negative mental health and self-talk, because I felt like I wasn't getting anything done. Like, you are something, you are perfect exactly as you are. Everything you get done on this earth is a bonus. You are wonderful as you are. And that's, I think, a huge piece of how to take care of yourself, is that it's okay to rest. Doesn't matter how many days, how many hours, it's okay to rest.
I agree. That's great advice. And if people want to follow along with you on your journey and stay connected with you, can you tell us where they
Yes.
can do that?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Michelle Young with 2 L's.
I can't thank you enough for being here with me today. And thank you for sharing a lot of the parts that people don't see. Um, and so I just really appreciate you being here. It's made my day just to sit
Oh,
here and
thank
talk
you.
with you.
It's been really
So,
nice to speak with someone who understands and can just even tell just by the I've been on a few podcasts, right? But just with somebody who has gone through similar things, you can just tell by the questions that are asked and the intention behind them. I really appreciate. So
oh, that's so
thank you for that.
nice. Thank you. This conversation with Michelle really is going to stay with me for a while, especially the reminder that so much of us who are living with chronic illness happens in the quiet, in the parts a lot of people don't see. If you saw yourself in any part of this episode, I hope that it reminds you that you're not alone in this. And this is exactly what the Spoonful Show is about: real conversations with people who understand what it's like when life shifts in ways that you don't expect. Next week, we welcome Amy Kurtz, author of But You Look Fine, Trapped in the Hell Between Sick and Well, and How to Break Free. And she's going to be on again with us to talk about this new book. And again, thank you for saving some spoons to be with me today. I really appreciate it. And until next time, take care. Just a quick reminder, everything shared here is based on personal experiences. Please consult your doctor for your own care.